Everyone remembers the first time they saw the ocean. We are creatures made of mostly water, so it makes sense what we're attached to it. The sight and sound can make troubles fade, and for a moment remove you from reality. Lately as a species, humans have not been doing so great with the ocean. But they say the only way to understand what you're protecting is to go and experience it for yourself.
Welcome to Roatan.
Yeah! Roatan is an island 40 miles off the northeast coast of mainland Honduras. It's known for its superb scuba diving on pristine reef right offshore. This is my fourth time scuba diving here in Roatan, and I've been diving with Bananarama Dive Resort in West Bay for about 3 years now. I've got my open water and advanced PADI certifications, and on this last trip I did my enriched air specialty. The dive sites in Roatan feature killer visibility and diverse wildlife. When diving in Roatan, I have no idea what I'll see. While most people land and hit the bar, Clay and I decided to see if we can get a dive in on our first day. Luck was on our side, and we were able to get a 60-foot dive in. On the very first dive, we saw one of Roatan's signature creatures, the hawksbill sea turtle. It was great to be back in Roatan, and the diving was just like I remember. On this particular trip, I had more friends traveling than normal, which I was really psyched on. I was a bit anxious on the lookout for my buddies, Elazar and Daniel. They were supposed to arrive later that afternoon. Once the guys got in, I convinced them to check out the reef, which was just a few feet offshore. This was a great opportunity to test out their new gear and prepare for their open water certification training the next morning.
Getting certified was a personal challenge. Back in college, I took some scuba lessons, and unfortunately I never finished. And 2 years ago, when Raja was here in Roatan for his first time, he brought me back a turtle magnet as a souvenir. It hung up on my fridge, reminding me that this was something I wanted to finish. We did a bit of snorkeling last night, and between snorkeling and online classes, we thought we would be ready. Raja and Clay told me about their experience getting certified on the reef, and this was something I had to see for myself. Daniel and I were scheduled to knock out all of our certification dives in 3 days. On day 1, our instructor Zoe took us down to 30 feet. As a first-time diver, you have to be ready for any scenario. But the truth is nothing prepares you for your first breath underwater. My least favorite drill was taking my mask off, but I was ready to take my GoPro in the water. Daniel and I were lucky enough to have a great instructor, and after a final 200-yard swim test, we were certified. Now the pressure is off, and we can join Clay and Raja on underwater adventures.
You swam like how long?
Half a mile at least. But it's done, it's over, it's time for shots.
Shots and sloths.
Shots and sloths.
Now that the guys are finally certified, the pressure's off and we can go diving. On our first 2-tank dive that morning, it was Clay, Daniel, Elazar, and myself, accompanied by our dive guide Zoe. Like I said, you never know what you'll see diving, and all of us were about to see one of my favorite sights underwater. Over the last couple years, I've only seen a spotted eagle ray a few times. They're majestic and beautiful, living 15 to 20 years, growing to around 8 feet long, and with their tail can reach 16 feet in length. When being close to rays, I think about the legend Steve Irwin from my childhood. It's good to respect your distance since they do have venomous spines by the base of their tail. On our last dive at Alice's Wonderland, I had an opportunity to witness an eagle ray feeding, which I'd never had a chance to see. The eagle ray seemed to be paying us no attention, so I continued to follow it around, observing the ray in its natural habitat. At one point, I got close enough to see the surprisingly goofy face and gills from a unique angle. Breakfast was my favorite meal to eat each morning. It's a perfect way to start the day.
The four of us were finally diving together, and we thought it would be a good time to take a break and venture into the island. On the way to the boat, we lost Daniel for a brief moment.
Today, I decided to take the guys in town to West End.
For the black lion. Yeah. Cheers, buddy.
The water taxi is a great way to get around. You catch some of the best views of the island. The whole grilled red snapper is a must. I was able to connect with my driver on the island for a last-minute excursion.
Dropping into the water on my first drift dive, I thought I would have some kind of control, but it was like being shot out of a cannon.
It was definitely one of the strongest currents I've ever felt at Pablo's, and I was worried you were going to suck down all your air.
I'd find myself drifting too far. Luckily, Raja was my dive buddy and was able to guide me back where I needed to be.
As I was swimming over to Elazar, I noticed a few curious creatures following him around.
I was starting to get the hang of it, and off to the side I saw my first giant green moray eel.
I noticed the eel and snapper working together to find something to eat. I definitely was not going to let the current keep me from photographing wildlife.
The current is something you just have to go with, and no matter what you do, it will always overpower you. It's an experience I will never forget.
Squid seem to be common when surfacing for a dive. I love seeing how close I can get before they dart off.
This dive was intense, but I forgot all about the drift when I saw my first sea turtle. The turtle found a great spot to keep out of the current. I could not have asked for a better first encounter. It was a quick drop to the bottom. Not long after getting there, Zoe and Raja were slapping their foreheads with their hands, signaling for a shark. Raja immediately took off after it, and we got a chance to get close and personal.
I began following the shark as it glided through the reef. I followed the nurse shark into a small coral outcropping. Next thing I know, Zoe is signaling for me to go in for a close-up. The nurse shark was docile at first, but as I approached closer, it let me know I was too close.
Distracted by the nurse shark, we didn't realize we had an audience. Barracudas began to get curious and joined the group for a while. Luckily, we didn't look like lunch, and they eventually moved on.
On this trip, I was particularly interested in the macro reef life. I'd previously been to this dive site before, and I really wanted to see how Elazar would feel about diving at close quarters.
The entrance looks like something out of a movie. I paid close attention to her guide to see where and how she was squeezing through some of these tight spots. It was hard not to get distracted by the environment and small creatures that would suddenly appear from dark parts of the cave.
The few rays of light squeezing through the openings above created spectacular lighting effects on the floors and walls.
We finally reached the other side, where we found ourselves surrounded by seagrass.
Hiding in the seagrass, there's a diversity of sea species. Elazar got low on air and had to surface. We came up on a sandy patch with a small shipwreck. It was a photographer's dream capturing the activity. The wreck was filled with lobsters and covered with shrimp.
This was a great dive. Squeezing through the cave made me go through my air a lot faster than anticipated. Even so, after 11 dives, I finally felt comfortable in the water. However, Raja informed me that our last 2 dives would really test my confidence.
One night prior to our arrival, divers encountered a very rare phenomenon. While surfacing, there were numerous sea wasps, and many divers were stung. Sea wasps are a type of jelly that can deliver an intense sting. See it? So it's like a tiny little dome, and it has four stingers. Little did I know they were attracted to the light, and I'd left my camera and light on. I was not helping my chances of persuading Elazar to go night diving, but he had no idea what he was in for.
After my night dive specialty course, I felt like I was up for the challenge. Raja failed to mention that most people do not do this on their first week of diving.
Diving at night in Roatan is my favorite type of diving. The experience is quite different than during the day. The colors are vibrant and true.
The night brings out creatures you would not commonly see during the daytime. The species of fish seen during the day are nowhere to be found, and we saw more lobsters, lionfish, and giant crab. Adding to our paranoia of diving at night, bloodworms were attracted to our light, making visibility low. The only way to get rid of them was to cut out all light and swim in the dark.
They normally do not bite, but you may want to cover your ears and wear a hood. Between the soft coral, shrimp, and other creatures, there was a bloodworm buffet.
Squid were much more curious at night, and they were very attracted to our light. They were allowing us to get close to them and seemed just as curious as we were.
It was fun chasing them and seeing how alien these creatures really were.
We were lucky enough that on this dive, the Kraken came to us.
Octopus are highly intelligent creatures, hunting actively at night and having the largest brains of all invertebrates. This Caribbean species was difficult to spot due to its remarkable camouflage and ability to change colors rapidly.
Getting this close to an octopus in the wild at night was possibly one of my favorite moments on this trip. Something about being in the dark under 60 feet of water will make anyone's heart race.
As our eyes adjusted, we could see bioluminescence all around us, making the entire reef glow.
I could see a silhouette of Raja kicking his fins and bioluminescence emitting from his body. This was my only means of navigation in the dark. After swimming for a few minutes, I saw an event that only occurs in the Caribbean: the string of pearls. Raja told me about this phenomenon: whitish blue flashing strings that lit up the ocean like stars in space. The more I looked into the depths of the ocean, I soon realized I was surrounded by glowing lights.
We kicked off the sandy bottom and swam for 20 minutes with no lights. It was great to share such a rare dive with a friend. Once you overcome the darkness, you realize how delicate this environment is.
Not everything in the dark is out to get you, and we fear what we do not understand. At some point, we have to realize that we all share this planet, and humans are destroying an environment that is defenseless.
Sometime shortly after returning from this trip, we saw videos and reports of trash floating near in and around Roatan. This was unreal to me because we were just diving there in such pristine water. The trash appears to have originated from a river system in Guatemala's Montagua River. This makes you realize the impact of local rivers on our ocean.
Currently, plastics and clothing fibers make up for a fair amount of trash that is seen. This plastic breaks down by the constant battering by the ocean and turns into a soup called plastic soup. This is then consumed by the wildlife, which ends up at our dinner table one way or another.
This carelessness is costing us, but there are others that believe we can make a difference. I am one of those people because I've seen numerous organizations make an impact and countries go plastic free. On this trip, I got a first-hand look at life under the sea. The experience made me realize how connected we are. Everything we do on land has an impact on the ocean, something that in today's world we can control. Our last dive was on for the morning, and it would truly test all of my training. We saved the best dive for last. Raja and the captain said we could see up to 25 sharks on the dive site. We had a short orientation on the dive profile and what not to do around sharks. Although this dive usually has 6 or more people, Raja was able to convince the captain to take 2 people. Before I knew it, I was on a boat with Raja, heading to do my first shark dive. Sharks have had a bad rap because of films and stories. The more I learned about sharks, the more I realized that they are not the sea monsters people think. They are smarter than people make them out to be. Unfortunately, they do not have the best eyesight in murky water, and they can mistake splashing as easy prey. This species of reef shark is responsible for keeping the oceans clean and free of debris and dead animals and maintaining a healthy ecosystem. For the moment, Elazar is just thinking about the movie Jaws. This is my second time at this dive site and thought this would be a perfect way to end this trip.
The second we started to descend, I could see the most sharks I've ever seen. We had to descend to 70 feet and keep enough air in our tank to come back up. We sat knees down in front of a coral wall, and through the deep blue, one by one, all of the sharks approached us. During the shark dive, one of the guides was feeding the sharks, making for a good show. After a few moments of getting comfortable, the dive got through a bucket full of fish heads, and we got to see a feeding frenzy.
The guides feed the sharks twice a day. After clearing all the fish heads in the buckets, the sharks lose interest. The guide gave us the signal to swim with the sharks, and we began swimming alongside them. They have perfect awareness and would swim within a few inches of making contact. This was truly amazing.
The fear faded, and we got to experience swimming with sharks. I almost didn't want it to be over so fast. I feel a new respect for sharks and what their role is in our planet. I hope the pointless killing of sharks comes to an end. These creatures may look scary, but humans are not on the menu.
Everyone does not have access to recycling, but those of us who do should definitely recycle and avoid purchasing or using single-use plastics whenever possible. I've been recycling for many years and feel fortunate this is possible in my area. I've tried to add a few things to my list every so often, and straws are what I tackled next. I no longer use single-use straws at home. Seattle is the first US city to ban plastic straws and utensils, and hopefully something like this can be done in my hometown of Charlotte, North Carolina. I have, however, seen some really cool companies that are composting and even t-shirts made of recycled water and soda bottles. Most people don't recognize microfibers as one of the top pollutants of the ocean. They contaminate the water table, are consumed by fish, and then consumed by us once again.
We are more connected than ever before. With advanced technology and collaboration, we can slow and maybe even reverse the damage. Let's band together and make small changes at home and in our communities, which all have an impact on local and coastal waterways. Before I knew it, this trip was over. I was able to finally get my open water certification and a magnet to add to my collection. I wasn't sure where my next destination would be, but Raja was already charting a course for her next adventure, a location referred to as the aquarium of the world.
Daniel got the open water certification. We hooked in a lot of dives, 12 to 14 dives. We saw everything.